The third effect of the Age of Exploration is that Aztecs and Inca are defeated. There's this guy named Fernando Cortez. He was from Spain. He came to make his way in the New World, fame and fortune. Okay, and he defeated Montezuma of the Aztecs. Now, there were a couple things going for Cortez. Montezuma was not very popular. The Aztecs in general were not very popular among the people that they had defeated. And when Cortez landed, he gathered a lot of those tribes that had been defeated by the Aztecs and got them on his side. Okay. Once he had defeated the Aztecs, then Cortez could turn against the Native Americans that had supported him. Okay. And so he was welcomed by some, hated by others, but in the end, he defeated the Aztecs. Pizarro defeated Atahualpa and the Incan people. The Incans knew what had happened to the Aztecs. They had an extensive trading network between the two empires, so they knew exactly what had happened to Montezuma. The problem is that the Incan Empire had just gone through a devastating civil war. Atahualpa was a new leader who was not very secure in his position. He agreed to meet Pizarro, and when Pizarro said that they were going to help Atahualpa and keep him on the throne, and in exchange, Atahualpa would have to give him gold and silver and allegiance, Atahualpa said no. Pizarro captured him and killed him, and then defeated the rest of the empire, taking it over for himself. Okay, so they were successful in these conquests for 4 reasons. Okay, the Spanish had better military technology. Now, yes, horses are not technology. Okay, but we're going to put them under there because the Incan and Aztec empires did not have horses. Okay. There was also division among native groups. This was very key in the defeat of the Aztec. Okay, the Aztec Empire was made up of a number of different tribes, and as a result, Cortez pitted those tribes against one another so that they would fight each other, leaving him available to fight other people. Cortez only had 600 men. Okay, he couldn't have defeated the millions of Aztecs that existed. So he exploited the hatred among those tribes, using them to kill each other. Disease also played a huge role. Okay, the native people had no immunity to European diseases, and in fact, a lot of those diseases preceded Cortez across the countryside on his way to the Aztec capital. And some natives believed that the coming of the Spanish was a sign of the end of the world. Within the Aztec culture, they believed that the new age was beginning. We do know today that that new age meant that the earth was aligning with a different star. Okay, that just recently happened here in 2012. Remember, the Mayan calendar ended. Okay, that just meant that nobody was around to write the next part of the calendar. Okay, same thing happened in the Aztec calendar. They said that that new age would be ushered in by gods coming from the east who were shining like the sun. Okay, sound like white people who came from the east? Yeah. So they were welcomed. Nevertheless, they ended up killing all of the natives that they could, and if they didn't kill them, then they dominated them. Okay, the fourth effect of the Age of Exploration is deepened colonial rivalries. This is very closely related to the first cause. Okay, because these countries in Europe were gathering as many colonies as they could, it created a warlike atmosphere. They were constantly fighting amongst each other for the limited amount of wealth in the world, because that fight also meant they could dominate the world. Okay, so that fight for wealth dominates the world. So in the end, the Spanish controlled what today we call Latin America. The Spanish were mainly into it for the wealth. They wanted the gold and silver. Once they'd gotten as much gold and silver out of the New World as they could, then they turned to cash crops like sugarcane. Portugal controlled Brazil. This is only because of the order by the Pope. The Spanish and the Portuguese, of course, almost came to blows over who was going to control Brazil. And the Pope stepped in. He couldn't have two Catholic countries fighting one another. Okay, since I'm not with you personally, I can't ask a question and have you answer. So keep in mind that this is around the same time as the Reformation. Okay, he can't afford to have more Catholics leaving the church. Okay, and if they go to war over the control of Brazil, then we have people killing each other, less money for the church, big problem. So the Pope steps in and divides the land so that they can avoid a war. England and France move into North America. France is in it for mainly trapping and money-making endeavors. They don't really establish extensive colonies or colonial governments. The English start off colonizing for religious reasons and then move into monetary reasons through cash crops and plantations and such. The fifth effect of the Age of Exploration is the transatlantic slave trade. Okay. Notice that a majority of the slaves come from the west coast of Africa, okay, mainly in this area. Okay, but we do have some that come from East Africa, very, very few though. Okay, notice that most of them come from this region. And most of the slaves are going to the West Indies, today what we would call the Caribbean islands. Okay, notice that only about 5% actually go to the United States. Okay, so why is this in effect? Okay, some things we need to know about the slave trade is that it existed in Africa before the coming of the Europeans. In fact, slavery existed in Europe as well. The Age of Exploration did not create the slave trade, it just extended it, and it created a brand new type of slavery. Okay, the Portuguese replaced European slaves with Africans because they felt that they were harder working and more disposable. Okay. They were harder working when it came to things like sugarcane and sugar plantations. Sugarcane is a labor-intensive crop, so we need a lot of people. Okay. And the first boatload of African slaves were bought by the Spanish in 1518 and brought to the New World. Okay. 275,000 other Africans were exported to other countries when this was first starting. Between the 16th century and the 19th century, so 1500s to 1800s, about 10 million Africans were shipped to the Americas. Okay. The last effect of the Age of Exploration is the triangle trade. This is a movement of goods and slaves between America, Europe, and Africa. This trade increased the wealth of Europe along with the creation of new companies and new ways of doing business. Okay. So what would happen is that Europe, a lot of it comes from England, but Europe would create manufactured goods and they would send them to the New World. They would send them to their colonies in North America and the Caribbean. They would ship alcohol, iron, guns, and so on to Africa, where they would pick up slaves or spices or other things that were found in Africa. Some of those things would go back to Europe. Notice the gold is going back to Europe, while the slaves are going to the New World. Okay. Then all of the natural resources are going to go to the mother countries. So whale oil, which is used for burning, for heat and for light, lumber, furs, rice, indigo, this is a dye, tobacco, sugar, molasses, wood, all these things are going to Europe to be made into manufactured goods, which come back to North America. Okay, remember that's called mercantilism. Okay, so other things that are going to go part of this triangle trade, things like rum and guns, gunpowder, cloth, tools, they're going to Africa, also used to trade for slaves, which are then brought back to the New World. Notice that we have a big triangle going on right here. Okay, the exchange of goods between the New and the Old World, this triangle trade. Okay, makes people a whole lot of money. But notice where all the hard currency is going. All of it is going to Europe. Gold, gold, gold this way. They are purchasing all of these things. Okay? All of the raw goods here, manufactured goods here. So all the money stays here. Okay? This is the essay question for the exam on Friday. Okay, what was the most important event of the Renaissance and why? Now, you should get to work with your group on creating a review video on the 6 effects of the Age of Exploration. See you tomorrow.